last days of the Second World War. 26th of April 1945. At Gatow Airfield near Berlin, a Fiesler Storch is ready for takeoff. On board, Colonel General Ritter von Greim, ordered to appear before Adolf Hitler. Berlin is surrounded by Russian troops. Nazi Germany is finished. A flight into the city appears impossible. By von Greim's side, Germany's most famous female pilot. She understands the danger, but is confident. Hanna Reitsch. The aircraft is hit by several rounds and begins to lose fuel. Von Greim collapses.
Greim would have been shot down. He was injured and unconscious, and she landed the plane on the street from over his shoulder.
In 1937, Hanna Reitsch becomes the first woman to cross the Alps from Salzburg in a glider. Germany has a new heroine. Hitler appoints her flight captain, the first woman in the world to hold the rank. A female test pilot, a public sensation. The National Socialist newspapers celebrate Hanna Reitsch and her achievements.
Hanna flew in new prototypes and had to decide where the relative strengths or weaknesses of these prototypes lay. Vertical drops from 6,000 meters down to 400 meters. It must have torn the nerves to pieces, not just for women, but for everybody.
Reitsch's job was to test dive brakes. This man is Reitsch's biggest supporter, Colonel Ernst Udet. In the 30s, Udet is a film star and prominent demonstration pilot. In Hitler's Luftwaffe, he rises to the rank of Generalluftzeugmeister, responsible for aircraft and supplies. He's directly answerable to Hermann Göring. Ernst Udet offers Hanna Reitsch a world premiere. She is the first woman in the world to pilot the first functional helicopter in the world, the FW-61. In 1938, it's a sensation.
A flight in a hall. Nobody has done that before. In a rehearsal for the Kiswahili event in the Deutschlandhalle, Flight Captain Reitsch demonstrates that Professor Fokker's helicopter can do the impossible.
In the course of the next 2 weeks, Hanna will fly the helicopter every day in front of 18,000 spectators in the enclosed Deutschlandhalle. The young Scottish Air Force pilot, Eric Brown, is in Berlin to witness Hanna Reitsch become a star.
This was a propaganda thing to use Hanna, and she did extraordinarily well.
At the start of the war, the German Air Force is the strongest in the world. A large number of new technologies are implemented. For the first time, Hanna Reitsch is directly involved in the development of military hardware. She tests cargo gliders, silent troop carriers used for the first time in the campaign against France.
The plan was to fly missions which could not be easily thwarted by the opposing aerial reconnaissance.
To achieve this, the designer Willy Messerschmitt builds a sailplane which surpasses any previous plane, the Gigant. The Gigant is only slightly smaller than a modern jumbo jet and is designed to transport 200 men or a tank. Reitsch is fascinated. Tow planes have difficulty getting the massive aircraft off the ground. Hanna Reitsch is barely strong enough to steer the unwieldy plane. Hanna Reitsch drives triumphantly through her hometown of Hirschberg. In March 1941, Hitler awarded her the Iron Cross, second class, for her dedication. Later, she becomes the first woman ever to be awarded the Iron Cross, first class, by Hitler personally, on one of the occasions where Hitler and his pilot meet. The war on multiple fronts begins. The German leadership puts its faith in superweapons. One of the superweapons, the Messerschmitt Me 163, is the most secret, fastest, but also the most dangerous aircraft of its time.
They were very radical innovations, and they demanded that test pilots go beyond their limits. This was not normal technology, but technology which had never been tested.
Fire hazard. The fuel is a highly explosive mixture. Hanna Reitsch is aware of the perils, and yet in the autumn of 1942, she tests the alleged superweapon. She hopes her endeavors will help to win the war. The Mi-163 is the first plane in history to reach a speed of 1,000 kilometers per hour. The aircraft can rise to an altitude of more than 10,000 meters in just 90 seconds.
It was fascinating. It was like thundering through the skies, sitting on a cannonball, like being intoxicated by speed. It was not difficult to fly it. It was only an overwhelming impression.
The fuel is used up within 5 minutes and the plane becomes a glider as intended. But technical difficulties result in disaster.
Miss Reitsch, can you hear me?
Hanna Reitsch spends 5 months in hospital. She loses her sense of gravity and the doctors say she will never fly again. SS Reichsführer Heinrich Himmler sends her flowers. Reitsch learns of defeat in Russia from her hospital bed. In February of 1943, the 6th Army surrenders at Stalingrad. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers have died. Tens of thousands of Germans taken prisoner by the Soviets. Hanna Reitsch wants to fly again, to do what she perceives is her duty. She retrains her center of gravity by balancing on the peak of the house's roof. At Peenemunde's facility, German scientists are working feverishly on Hitler's superweapons. Werner von Braun, Hanna's old friend from her Hirschberg days, builds rockets here. Test of the Vergeltungswaffe 2, the vengeance weapon. The first flying object ever to reach space is designed to bring death over great distances. But Hanna Reitsch is here for a different weapon, the V1, the world's first cruise missile, also developed in Peenemünde. There are problems with the steering system. Reitsch intends to test the missile and make it controllable. The Germans are firing the rockets across the channel, more or less aimlessly.
The V1 gave us a lot of trouble. If one intercepted it, there were two problems. You were either going to blow yourself up if you got very close to it and fired on it, and also you didn't want to shoot it down if it was anywhere near built-up area. Otherwise you were going to bomb the area by shooting down the weapon.
Hanna Reitsch pilots the flying bomb, believing she has found the perfect weapon for the suicide missions. A bomber plane is to take the V1 and the pilot to high altitude, from which the pilot is to steer the bomb into enemy targets. Reitsch believes that this will be far more effective than Hitler's alleged superweapons.
Everybody was always talking about these superweapons, but few believed in them. Hanna Reitsch even penetrated Hitler's bubble and told him, how did she put it? You are talking about a future embryo, something which hasn't even been born yet, and yet you want to use it for final victory. He was very concerned to meet such resistance, because for once someone dared to tell him the truth rather than remaining silent around him.
But the defeat of Hitler's Germany is inevitable. The manned V1 rocket is never used. Soviet troops have fought their way to Berlin, and the National Socialist power base is in ruins. The Führer and the last dregs of a lost war. Hitler plans to send children to fight in the hopeless battle. It is the dictator's final appearance in public. He then withdraws into the bunker under the Reich Chancellery with his most trusted advisors. Field Marshal Goering is not among them. Hitler's second-in-command had attempted to take power, and Hitler strips him of all his responsibilities. Colonel General Robert Ritter von Grein is to take control of the Luftwaffe for the remainder of the war.
Basically, Hitler gave the idiotic order that Greim should appear in the bunker, which was totally insane.
Von Greim has no choice but to meet the Führer in the bunker and needs somebody who can fly him there almost blindly. Hanna Reitsch. It is 5 p.m. on the 26th of April 1945. Reitsch and von Greim take off in their Fieseler Storch from Gatow airfield, 20 kilometers from the center of Berlin.
One thing you have to give Hanna, whether you like her or dislike her, you have to admire her fantastic courage. This woman had no fear of any kind.
The route takes them over the Wannsee and the Grunewald forest in the direction of the Brandenburger Tor.
The entire forest was filled with Russians, firing everything they had at us.
The aircraft is hit by several rounds and begins to lose fuel. Von Greim collapses.
Greim would have been shot down. He was injured and unconscious, and she landed the plane on the street from over his shoulder.
Hanna Reitsch and General Ritter von Greim arrive at the Führer bunker on the evening of the 26th of April. They will leave again on the 28th, the last to do so. Now, for the first time, an academic evaluation of the biography of Germany's most famous and most controversial pilot and of the flight to Berlin is possible. To date, the flight remains the key event in Hanna Reitsch's life. This letter to her brother Kurt is the only personal report of those days in the Führer bunker. In it, Reitsch tries to set the record straight about things she felt were reported incorrectly. But what did really happen in the bunker? One of the few eyewitnesses is Hitler's secretary at the time, Traudl Junge. She is at work when Reitsch and the injured von Greim reach Hitler's section of the bunker. The Soviets are only a few hundred meters from the Reich Chancellery, and the final battle for Berlin is underway. Hitler places all his hopes in the army replacements led by General Wenck and fantasizes about a last-minute turnaround. He appoints von Greim commander of an air force that barely exists anymore. On the 28th of April, Reitsch and von Greim managed to escape from Berlin by air.
Somebody from the outside world came into this trap and then left after spreading a sense of hope. But we stayed behind for 3 days more, to the bitter end.
In the course of their escape from Berlin, Reitsch and von Greim land in Lübeck. Captain Erich Braun, by now chief test pilot of the Royal Navy, is also there. He's known Hanna Reitsch since 1936.
I was in a bar, and somebody had said that Hanna Reitsch and Ritter von Greim had been seen at the airfield in Lübeck. And they said they thought she was on her way to Kitzbühel. And I wondered why Kitzbühel.
On the 8th of May 1945, the German Reich surrenders. Days before, Tyrol is liberated by American and French troops. Captain Erich Braun tracks Reitsch down to a field hospital in Kitzbühel.
And when I came to the women's ward, I saw Hanna, and she immediately recognized me. She knew that I knew who she was, because she was feigning a heart attack. And I spoke with her, and I said, you know, Hanna, the game is up. But I decided there was no alternative but to tell the Americans where she was. And they took her over.
She spends the next 18 months in American captivity. Leopoldskron Castle near Salzburg. Hanna Reitsch's family is staying here in the course of their escape from the Russians. Hanna's mother, her younger sister, and her sister's children are living in the castle. When rumors surface that they are to be sent back to Silesia in the Russian zone, Hanna's father shoots his family, and later himself.